ahead and test this out. Make sure that we're all working. It's been a while since we did this, so I want to make sure that my microphone is working. Make sure that we are all operational. If you guys cannot hear me, let me know in chat. If you can, let me know that as well. Make sure that we're all clear before we get started reading. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Hannah and Aaron, for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, so welcome back to the reading stream. This is the Raven's Roost, or the Raven's Writing Room, whichever you want to call it, where we focus on writing and reading. And during my Raven Read streams, I read to you some of my stories because I'm a published author and writer, and I love to share my work, my stories. I love my writing and my stories and character creations more than I do playing games or anything like that. Playing games is fun, but creating stories is more fun for me, so I really, really do enjoy sharing my stories and creations with my audience. We almost gave this series up because some folks last time did not adhere to the rules, but after a lot of begging and pleading and people really wanting these to come back, I have decided to give y'all one more chance. So we are bringing these back. I will remind you of the rules before we get started so that everyone is clear on them. In these streams, we do not talk about games or movies or TV shows or my other content. There's a time and a place for that. This is not that place, you know. Don't ask me questions about, have you read my story on this? Have you seen this show? Have you played this game? What are your thoughts on this character? I'm not here to do that. And please try not to do that with others in the chat. I know that it's tempting, but honestly, and I'll be real, I keep an eye on the chat because I want to make sure that people are, following the rules and making sure that I'm able to answer questions when they come up. And if I see people talking amongst themselves about games and stuff, it gets very distracting. So please there's a time to socialize about that stuff. I have a whole Discord where you can do that. I don't want my streams to turn into a social hour. You know what I mean? Okay, that's the first rule. The second rule is please don't make things awkward between each other. When you're talking amongst each other, if you have to talk amongst each other, please don't get inappropriate or rude. No trolling each other. This isn't the place to troll. While I was getting everything set up on my end, I saw a few emojis of painting nails. Stuff like that is stuff that I would consider trolling. It's being overly goofy. And I don't mind, lightheartedness, but there's a place for it. And last but not least, enjoy the stories. I work very hard on these, and I really enjoy sharing them. Let's not get toxic about them. Even if you don't enjoy a chapter or a story, don't say like, wow, this is shit, or wow, this is bad. Just, leave. You can walk away from the stream. It's totally fine. But those are the rules. I hope we all understand them. Aaron and Hannah have offered to police the stream to make sure that everyone obeys the rules. So I will trust them to handle that, but I also want to hold y'all accountable too. All right. Okay, so we are going to pick up where we left off with the Tale of Tomaki. We left off on chapter 29. So we finished up chapter 28 last time. We're on 29 now, and I am very excited. If you remember where we left off with Tomaki, we're in Act 2 of Tomaki. Tomaki has met another Saiyan named Daikon, and Daikon is currently in the wind, but he has planned to come back after Tomaki gets a little stronger. Meanwhile, a group of galactic poachers who have come to the planet to capture and kill Daikon discover Tomaki and decide to hunt him as well. And we also have the Galactic Patrol who have shown up. 2 of them have shown up, and they are going to help Tomaki in his little fight. So, with all that said, let's get started. We're picking up on chapter 29, written May 3rd. Let's get started. Vokon glared out the window at the moon overhead. He was sneering through his sharp teeth, and his eyes were narrowed. This was intolerable. Nix and Zikal were standing off to the far side of the warehouse they'd commandeered as a base of operations. They knew better than to get close to him while he was like this. After some time, it was Nix who spoke up first.
Boss, is all well?
You know damned well it's not. Our employer is becoming impatient, Vokan growled. I just finished speaking to him and our progress on hunting Daikon.
Nix and Zakal both sat in the silence. They'd received word on their progress, and it wasn't good.
Is it true Ratma died?
Zakal asked.
I can't believe it. In his monstrous form,
He was a fool, Vokan finished. I gave him a direct order not to engage Daikon. He chose to disobey. Had he succeeded, I would have killed him. Disobedience will never be tolerated. Am I clear?
Both Nix and Zakal gulped and nodded.
Yes, sir. And then there's Joga, of course, Nix muttered. He was captured by the poachers and taken off planet.
A minor inconvenience, Vokan dismissed. While his capture is unfortunate, Joga's too stupid to give the patrol any useful information about our operations or our whereabouts. His greed and gluttonous appetite for battle was always a greatest flaw for him, which is why I allowed him to fight, to survive, and he weakens the ranks of the enemy in doing so. At least our weak link is severed. All the better for when we actually take on Daikon.
Is that how you see us? Zakal stammered. Just your pieces on a game.
Game, Vokan asked. This is no game, Zakal. It is a battlefield, and in battle there are only victors and the dead. We face Saiyans, a race that understands this truth and is raised on that principle from the moment of their birth. Daikon understood this and was able to destroy Ratma because of it. Now he is the victor, and Ratma is the dead. Be grateful you two have remained victorious thus far.
Vokan turned around and twirled a knife between his fingers. Nix and Zakal listened intently to him, but when nothing was said, Nix dared to speak.
Sir, what about the other Saiyan? The one who defeated Joga?
I doubt this new Saiyan defeated Joga alone. Ratma detected a low power level from him, and though he might have hid his power level to some degree, he also had assistance from the patrol. With that said, his presence does alter the nature of our mission. I did not anticipate two Saiyans on this planet.
What if we kill the young Saiyan and take his tail? Our employer won't know the difference between them.
No, Vokan snapped. For one thing, even if we took such a cowardly route, inevitably Daikon would escape the planet and cause devastation elsewhere, revealing our failure to all. And for another, hunting Saiyans is not about money. It's for the same damn reason they fight. I will prove we are superior to those filthy primates. Saiyans claim they are the finest warriors in the galaxy, and now there are only a handful left. What better way to prove your strength than to exterminate the remnants of these ancient warriors? We will kill Daikon because we have to demonstrate the age of Saiyans is past, and we are the superior warriors.
But we can't find him. What do we do?
Zakal asked.
Patience, Zakal. Hastiness will lead you to your doom, especially if we rush towards Daikon without thinking. There are better ways to deal with him.
How so?
Saiyans are incredibly powerful, but they do have a common weakness. Their tails are a physical weakness, but there's one greater. Their lust for battle and power. Daikon seeks strong opponents, but he clearly doesn't see us as a challenge yet, or else he'd come straight to us. Then the answer is to simply give him a reason to come to us. We must prove our worth to Daikon, and then he'll come rushing to battle, where we will ensnare him in our trap.
Fine, but how do we prove our power to him?
Nix asked.
There aren't many creatures, especially on this planet, that can rival a Saiyan in power.
We do not need another creature, Vokan smirked. We already have a second Saiyan on the planet. Our target is the second one. We will kill him, and we shall pique the interest of Daikon in doing so.
But I thought you said that we weren't going to kill the weaker Saiyan,
Nix asked. I said we would not substitute Daikon's tail for his. I never said I'd simply ignore the little brat. Nixon Zakal smiled widely at the thought and stood up.
Your orders?
Nix, prepare the trap. You know what to do. Zakal, you and I shall seek out this Saiyan, and we'll add a new tail to my necklace.
I sat on the roof of the dojo, my eyes closed and my mind clear. The air around me felt cool as it drifted against my skin and blew my hair to and fro. I felt aware of the world around me, like when one steps into a humid fog and the moisture touches every part of it. The serenity was my cloud. I could feel the energy in myself and the birds flying overhead, of Master Hayato below in the living room. But there was someone else approaching. Victoria? I opened my eyes instantly and ran to the edge of the roof to see her walking up to the dojo. I jumped down and landed by the door just as she made it to the steps. She beamed when she saw me, and I beamed back. "Hi, Tomaki," she giggled, hurrying up to meet me. I opened my arms and hugged her tightly, happily. She hugged me back, and I basked in the embrace. "I was hoping to see you today," I said with a laugh. Sorry, technical issue there. "I was hoping to see you today," I laughed. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Maybe. What about you? How are you?" "Well, it's been a long time since we last talked and hung out. You've been busy," Victoria pouted playfully. I looked down, disappointed. She was right. I hadn't gotten to visit her for a few weeks. With more problems going on in the city, as well as a general panic about these alien attacks, I had my hands full with controlling the criminals popping up. Not only that, but Master Hayato had been training me non-stop to improve my technique and strength. In fact, the Galactic Patrol warrior Hosha had even stopped by a few times to observe me and offer insight into his own understanding of Saiyan combat. And that was a lot to learn, and I'd been very distracted because of it. "Sorry. You know, so much has happened, and there's been all these new threats." "I'm teasing you," Victoria laughed. "I know you try to fight for our city, and Dad's really proud of you. I am too, but I do think that we need some time for, us." "Well, what did you have in mind?" "Well, you haven't been at school in a while, so you probably don't know that we have a school dance tonight." "Oh, and you want me to come with you?" "I don't know, Victoria. I'm not so good at these kind of things. I hate dances and social stuff." "Well, you don't have to do much. It's just dancing. What, afraid of a little fun?" "I'm afraid of embarrassing myself. And you." "Well, I'd be more disappointed if you don't come. You can take a break from training for one night, right?" I blushed and rubbed the back of my head. "I can try." "Well, great. It's tonight at 7:30. "Well, you need me to pick you up or something? I mean, don't guys do that? They pick up their dates?" "Yes, normally they do. But I know you can't drive and you don't have a car." "I mean, I could fly you." "Tomaki, that would ruin my hair." "That never bothers me." "You're not a girl, Tomaki. It's kind of a big deal for most women." Victoria laughed, clearly entertained by my response. "Look, Dad'll get me there. You just show up and be yourself. It'll be fine." She leaned up and planted a kiss on my cheek. "See you tonight." "Wait, what do I wear anyway?" She was already running down the hill, likely to go get ready. I simply rubbed my brow and shook my head. This is not how I planned to spend my evening.
"And how exactly did you plan to spend it?" Hayato asked. I spun around, not at all surprised to see him standing by the door.
"How long have you—"
"I think a date night would be a great idea," Hayato smiled. "You've been far too focused on your training. Even the best warriors need some R&R, you know. Go cut loose. Enjoy some time with Victoria. Have some fun. Loosening up and enjoying yourself might help you remember what it is you're even fighting for."
"Well, what if something happens in the city?" I questioned.
"Well, the police do exist, you know. And even if they need a little backup, I'm sure Melody wouldn't mind doing a few rounds for you. Maybe you could even ask the Galactic Patroller fella to assist for the night. But the fact is, you've been overworking yourself, boy. I think you can afford one night to have a little fun."
I smiled at Hayato and nodded. "All right, I'm not sure what to wear."
"Go find Melody. I think she'll help you figure out the solution to that problem."
When the hour of the dance finally came, I was feeling nervous and uncomfortable. Nervous because I'd never gone to anything like this, but also uncomfortable because I didn't like the clothing choice. I had on some kind of button-down shirt under a blazer and pressed pants with these shiny shoes that pinched my feet. Melody had raved about how for once I looked respectable, as if I didn't always. My tail had been hard to deal with. Eventually, we'd had to cut a small hole in my pants to let it slip out. It was just too uncomfortable keeping it in my pants and running down my pant leg. But as I caught sight of the school, I pushed all those uncomfortable thoughts aside as I descended down to find Victoria. My classmates and peers all pointed and whispered about me, likely recognizing me from the newspapers or something. I didn't care. I was only interested in one person right now. I wandered the parking lot and finally went inside to see the dance for myself. Though I'd never been in the dining hall that much, it looked vastly different to what I remembered. All the tables had been pushed up against the wall, leaving an open floor. A DJ was in the front behind the table, wearing goofy shades as music blasted and beat in the air like a concussion blast. The strobe lights were maddening, and I did my best not to glare at them. But everyone else seemed to enjoy them as all they danced and went down on the floor, cheering and hollering. But there was still no sign of, "Well, hey, handsome." I turned to see her, and my breath caught in my throat. She stood there in a long red dress that appeared to be made of silk or something soft and elegant. It was a strapless thing, and her lovely shoulders were perfectly visible. Her hair hung free, but it draped over one shoulder on one side. Her beautiful eyes shone like rubies, and there was the faintest appearance of makeup on her face, yet not so much that it seemed trashy or caked in the stuff. If anything, it only added to her beauty. For as long as I'd known Victoria, being around her made me feel strange. A feeling would well up that I was so unfamiliar with that it might frighten me. But now I was truly terrified of how fast these feelings grew in me. I never felt so happy and scared all at the same time to stand in front of anyone. You're staring. Is there something wrong with my dress? No. You look, I was... For such a hardcore warrior, you sure do get nervous easily around girls. No, honestly, just you, I admitted without thinking. Victoria blushed and took my hand. Come here. Did anyone do your hair? She asked, leaning up and brushing my hair. Melody said it was a lost cause. She might have had a point. How about the city for tonight? Hostess said he didn't mind patrolling a little for me, but it wasn't his place to deal with domestic disturbances. That guy may talk like he's indifferent, but I can tell he cares. He and that partner of his. I think the city's in good hands with them. You can relax. As she spoke, the DJ's song ended and switched to something a bit softer. Several of the dancers on the floor ran off to the sides, leaving a few couples in the middle, dancing together in a more relaxed manner. Well, that's enough about that. Want to hit the dance floor? Sure, I squeaked without thinking. She pulled me out on the floor, and I felt my legs turning to jelly. How do I do this? Don't overthink it. Dancing isn't too different from your martial arts, Tomaki. Here, put your hand here. She took my hand and placed it on her hip as she reached over with her hand and took my left hand. Her right hand rested on my shoulder and smiled. There, now, just move with me. She began to move her feet, and I followed. I felt ridiculous as I matched her movements. This was nothing like martial arts. And yet the smile on Victoria's face. I've missed you a lot, Tomaki, she muttered. I missed you too. You know, when this is over, I want to spend more time with you, she said kindly. There are times I'm really jealous of Melody, being able to fight alongside you and help you train. I feel like I can't help you at all. I guess that's true. You can't help me in fighting, but there's one thing that Melody can't do that you always have. And what's that? Melody's my friend, but she can't make me feel the way I feel when I'm around you. Only you make me feel so amazing. Victoria beamed and leaned against me. You are the cheesiest person I've ever met, but I love that about you. I'm so glad you could come. I smiled and seemed to lose myself in a moment. The soft music, the feel of her body against mine, it was wonderful. You know what? I had my doubts, but I'm happy that I could... I froze. An intense sensation filled me. I could sense a massive energy level coming fast. I'd felt it before. Not too long ago either. But what was it doing here? What were they doing here? I stopped dancing immediately, and Victoria looked at me concerned. Hey, what's wrong? Victoria, get everyone out. Get everyone out right now. Why? What's wrong, Tomaki? The poachers! The wall exploded into fragments, and the music died instantly as children and adults all screamed in terror. I pulled Victoria behind me so she wouldn't be in the path of the rocks or an eyesight of whatever stepped through that wall. And in walked the large and intimidating creature I'd seen before, bulging with muscles and his long, shaggy hair looking like a lion's mane. The energy flowing off of him was intense, and I felt chills run through my spine as I stared at him. It was Vokan, the leader of the poachers.
Good evening, he spoke in mock politeness. My name is Vokan, and please forgive me for disturbing your festivities. but I'm here for a certain Saiyan.
Victoria, get out. But what about everyone else?
I'll do what I can. Just get out. Call your dad and tell him what's happening. We detected a higher than average power level here. So we know you're here, Saiyan. If the one known as Tomaki would kindly reveal himself, that'd be helpful. I threw off my blazer and powered up, ki bursting from my body. The rise in my ki caught Vokon's attention as he finally turned to look at me. He glanced at my tail and then grinned. So here you are.
What do you want? I sneered. I thought you were only interested in Daikon.
Far easier to deal with the weakest link first before obtaining the true prize, Vokon explained.
If you want to fight, let's do it outside, not in here where people can get hurt, I shouted.
Vokon's eyes widened, and for a brief moment he seemed genuinely stunned. The other alien with him, I think his name was Zakal, just smirked.
What? Are you seeking to spare these people? Are you truly a Saiyan? A Saiyan cares nothing for others, only that he destroy his enemies.
I'm not like other Saiyans, I challenged.
Then I suppose this won't be much fun at all. I thought you might be a challenge, but I see your leash around your neck, the chain that binds you to weakness.
Vokon charged, and I readied myself.
Die, Saiyan!
All right, 1 second. Need to get me something to drink so that I can clear my throat a bit. To get me something to drink. All right. Chapter 30. I jumped his punch instantly and landed a solid kick into the side of Vokon's head, sending him flying across the dining hall and into a wall. I didn't stop there. I threw my shirt off as it restricted my movements and launched myself after him, building up ki into my fist as I struck him hard. "You like that?" I snapped.
Is that all you can do?
I felt pain burst through my chest as his head crashed into me like a cannonball, firing me across the room like a bullet and smashing into 3 tables and finally leaving a crater in the brick wall. Blood spurted from my mouth like a busted balloon, and I swore I felt my right arm break from the impact, but I tried to shake it off. His headbutt, it was nothing short of a wrecking ball. Vokon stepped out, brushing the blood from his lip.
Weak. Absolutely pathetic. Now I know you didn't defeat Joga alone.
I got up and ran at him again, holding back just enough power to not hurt the innocent students who had just gotten out, but with enough to hit him with a small explosion. Rejects! Ah! His fist caught my gut before I could touch him, and I felt him grip my injured arm and fling me across the room again. I tried to recover, but he was on top of me in a microsecond. I threw up my defenses and prepared for his counterattack. Each punch that came close I deflected, but their weight was incredible. Blocking them was a challenge, but that was only half of my problem. The real problem was I couldn't use my full power yet. And from the look on Vokon's face, I think he was figuring that out. He threw in a solid knee to my face, and I threw up my arms to block, using my ki like a buffer to slow and muffle the force. But it was a moot point.
You're holding back your full power, Vokon hissed. Why?
I didn't answer him. I just stood ready, glancing back as the students still filed out of the room as fast as they could. Vokon saw my distraction and looked.
Them?
Leave them out of this! I told you if you want me, you can have me, but they aren't involved!
You're right, Vokon admitted. They aren't involved, so I'll remove them from the equation.
He raised his hand as purple energy began building on his hand. No! I leaped at him and struck him with full force, an explosion of ki accompanying the blast. He grunted in pain and leapt away, coughing and rubbing his jaw.
Oh, that was better. Looks like I finally got through to you.
I'm warning you.
Leave them out of it, I roared. I'll give you a fight. Just don't touch them. If you care so much about them, then protect them, Saiyan. He leapt away from me and towards the students as screams erupted. I threw myself in his path and slammed both hands into his chest. Reject! This time I connected with the blast of a shotgun. Vokon was thrown away from me. My hands were trembling from the impact, and I quickly tried to recover my energy. I was expending everything to keep them safe. If Vokon kept doing this, someone would get hurt. But I couldn't use my full power to stop him. Doing so would put them at risk. All I could do was hold him off until everyone got out. Not too many to go. Only about 30 students left in the building. Just a bit longer. Not bad, Saiyan. Not bad at all. Vokon laughed, climbing to his feet and holding out both hands as purple energy began to gather in his palms. But now I'm done playing this game. Time to end it. The purple energy flared up brightly, and I knew it was coming. He clapped his hands hard, and the purple light grew until it seemed to fill the whole room. There was no way I could block the whole thing. I had to deflect the area heading towards the students. I roared in anger, and my ki flared up. I released it in a focused blast, and our two energies met, clashing with a loud explosion of force. It was incredible, and I had to keep pouring out energy just to hold it off. Any more energy, and I'd lose control. I thrust both hands forward and finally dissipated the expanding ki into mist, but half the dining hall was obliterated behind me. I fell to one knee and panted heavily. This had to be the hardest battle I'd had in ages. It wasn't because Vokon was necessarily too strong, but that I was fighting with an arm tied behind my back. I couldn't go all out. I glanced behind me, glad to see none of the students seemed hurt as the last of them were evacuating. I smiled when suddenly I heard a scream. A terrible and very familiar scream. No! I spun around and saw Vokon coming down from above with a deadly ki attack, but it wasn't me he was aiming for. Victoria! Why had she come back? Why was she inside? Why hadn't she just stayed out with the others? Did she come back for me? Was she trying to save me? I couldn't stop to ask these questions. All I could do was run for her. Get away! I sprinted forward and slammed my full body into Vokon, causing an explosion of ki to clash with us, knocking us both backward on the opposite wall. Victoria! I jumped to my feet and saw her laying on the ground. Her red dress and her silvery hair covered in blood as rubble from the wall lay all around her. The ki explosion we just caused. I hadn't suppressed my power. She'd received the full blunt of that exposure. No! No! I rushed her aside and lifted her into my arms. Her body was limp. Her face had a few cuts on it. I placed my ear to her chest, listening, begging. It was faint, but I could scarcely make it out. I could sense a heartbeat in her chest. She was still alive. Stay with me! You stay with me! I aimed my hand to the ceiling and destroyed it with a ki shot. When the hole appeared and I shot through it, flying at top speed for the hospital, I heard his voice. Where do you think you're going? Vokon shouted. I shot a venomous look back at him. I'll be back for you! I roared before focusing all my energy on getting away. I'd never run from a fight before, but I had no choice. This was my first and only priority. I didn't care about the school, about Vokon, about the poachers, about anyone. Victoria needed help. Her body was so light, I barely felt it, but the pain in my soul was sapping my strength fast. I hadn't held back. I'd been so afraid for her that I'd let all my energy out at once, and she'd been caught in that explosion. Don't you leave me. Please, Victoria! I landed out in front of the hospital and ran inside. The staff took one look at me and Victoria and rushed into action, but it meant nothing to me, as I was crying and holding her out to them. Help her! I shouted. Save her, please! I screamed again. They ran out with a stretcher and helped her onto it. I followed after them, but two of the nurses held me back. You can't go in there. You have to stay here. No! Let me through. I have to be with her. I'm sorry. She needs medical attention and you'll be in the way. Please, just wait here. I struggled a moment, but finally gave in. You save her, damn it! Don't let her die! They ran back to go tend to her, and when they were gone, I finally whispered what I was thinking. I can't lose her too. This was my fault. Just like with Belle. My fault that she was there. My fault that Vokon attacked. My fault that she was in the line of fire. It was all me. My stupid self wanting to go to some dance. I had no right to enjoy myself or relax when there were threats like that existed. I'd just drawn them to her. I fell against the wall, crying into my hands. Tomaki! I looked up. Time seemed to have slowed me down for me. As suddenly Victoria's father was running inside. His face white, sweat on his face.
How long had I been sitting here?
What happened? Victoria called me saying one of the aliens was attacking the school. Where is she?
Sir,
I didn't. Then she said she was going back in for you. What happened to her? Tell me!
he shouted, grabbing my shoulders. She's somewhere back there. I got here as quick as I could. Mr. Rhodes, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault that she...
No, son, no, it wasn't your fault,
Mr. Rhodes shakily whispered.
No, if anything, you probably saved her life. God bless you, Tomaki.
He walked away and fell into a chair, rubbing his brow helplessly. Despite his words, I couldn't shake the feelings of fear in my heart. What happened to Vokan? I asked.
We arrived on the scene and he was gone, he answered. He must have lost interest in the school when you left. There were a few injuries, no deaths that we could see, thankfully. We're still assessing the situation, but I left immediately when I heard that...
Mr. Rhodes replied, and he was cut off short. It was all small comfort, of course. Hours passed in what felt like days. I only sat in silence, hoping, crying and praying for her. But slowly the fear grew to depression and despair. Why was it taking so long to hear back? What if I just held back my power? Finally, a familiar face walked in. I glanced up to see a heavily armored individual walk into the hospital. Despite the helmet, I knew who it was. Everyone in the lobby of the hospital stared at the Gaiken soldier walking in, but I knew Hosho when I saw him.
Tomaki, I heard about the Volcan attack. Are you all right? Are you safe?
I am, but not Victoria, I growled.
I wanted to inform you, despite how bad this seems, there is a sliver of good news. Thanks to Volcan's attack, we got a fix on his location. When he attacked the school, I honed in on his energy and tried to intercept him, but he was already gone. But he'd managed to get away to his hideout. He's hiding out in some warehouse a few dozen miles from here. It's near the Bay sector, if I'm correct.
I listened to him speak about Vokan, but it seemed somewhat muffled. The sadness in my heart was changing shape like a log being caught fire. Rage. Hatred. Fury. These emotions began to swell in my being and my fists were clenched. Vokan. I hated him. I loathed that despicable monster. He dragged Victoria into this. It was his fault. His fault! I was about to stand when finally, at long last, a doctor stepped out of the doorway. I spun to see him, and Mr. Rhodes was already hurrying to him.
Doctor, how is she? Is she all right?
Mr. Rhodes asked.
We've stabilized her, but she's not out of the woods, the doctor explained. She's unconscious right now. She suffered severe head and spine trauma. We're monitoring her for further lasting injury. She has a concussion, and we believe she might have suffered at least temporary vision loss due to the damage to her ocular nerves. The damage to her spine is what we're truly worried about, though. As it was low, we don't anticipate long-lasting damage. But there is a possibility of paralysis from the waist down that we must be prepared for.
My God. Every word the doctor said filled my heart with agony. I could feel tears rolling down my face. What had I done to her? What had I done? What would happen to Victoria?
We are going to prepare her for surgery. If you want to come back and see her quickly.
Yes, please. The doctor took Rhodes by the arm and led him through. I followed close behind. When the doctor turned as if to stop me, Rhodes just waved me in. Hosho waited in the lobby, giving a nod.
Go see her. We'll talk afterwards, Tomaki.
I just stared at her, unable to believe what I was seeing. That same beautiful face, now bloody and laying on a pillow with rods and bandages around her head. Her beautiful gown was gone and replaced with a wretchedly white hospital gown. Her neck was tied in a brace, and her eyes were bandaged so I couldn't even see those red eyes of hers. She looked like a vision of death, and for a brief second I feared the worst. Her breathing was short and labored, and I clutched my chest in disbelief. Rhodes ran to her and knelt beside her, kissing her cheek and crying next to her, unmoving, and her unconscious body just lay there without responding. I wanted to do the same, but I stopped myself. It was me. It was me that put her there. I didn't have the right to go to her side yet. No, it wasn't me. It was Vokan. The rage flared into me once more, and all I could see was his smug, ugly face. That disgusting sneer as he charged at Victoria. He'd done this, and he would suffer for it.
Take care of her, sir. I'll be back. I marched out of the hallway and back towards the lobby. When I walked out, I glanced at Hosha, who merely stared at me a moment before he gulped. He felt uneasy. Good, because I wanted Vokon to feel the same way. Where is he? I snarled. A warehouse outside of Bay. Like I said, I'm gathering some reinforcements. Once they get here by morning, where are you going? I was already walking past him towards the exit. I'm going to find Vokon, I hissed. You can't seriously expect to fight him alone. You barely held him off before. Don't stop me, I snarled back. Vokon crossed the line. He crossed it because he wanted to fight me at my best. He wanted me to get angry. He got it. I'm gonna give him exactly what he wants. Tomaki, I can't let you go. Tomaki! I wasn't listening anymore. I had already taken off and started flying for Bay. Sensing the energy of Vokon as best I could, I would find him. I'd find him and I'd make him pay for what he'd done. Vokon, I roared. The image of Victoria's weak and unconscious face fresh in my memory, and Vokon's ugly sneer replacing it. I'll kill you for what you've done! Chapter 31. I remember waking on the floor of Master Hayato's dojo. I'd only been training with him for about a year and a half. I blinked and tried to move. I tried to get my bearings. How long had I been out? I sat up, and then the sudden pain that jolted through my body knocked me down again. I resisted the urge to scream as intense, ripping pain tore through my whole body, especially my right arm. I glanced at it to see it was completely bandaged. Even my chest and shoulders were bandaged up like some kind of mummy. I looked around hoping to see someone, and then I saw Hayato standing nearby. Master Hayato was just staring at me with concern on his face, as well as frustration. Master? Do you remember what happened, Tomaki? He asked. I thought back. Like, it had been only a year and a half since I'd left home to train with him. We'd been training in more advanced techniques. He'd gotten me to try something new, a way to use my ki in a more powerful way. I remember we were practicing a new technique, I muttered, and then I used it on that really big rock out on the hill. But then after that, it's all just pain and snapping noises. Hayato pulled back the curtain to the window and pointed out to the hill where he'd been training. Do you see what that technique did? I looked, and there was nothing there. The hill was a pile of rubble. Trees were destroyed and scattered like twigs in a maelstrom. I couldn't believe my eyes. I'd caused that? What on earth? I did that? Hayato pulled back his sleeve to reveal large cuts and bruises along his own arm. Tomaki, I was standing only 30 meters away from you, and the shockwave you caused nearly killed me as well. That attack, it's far too dangerous. I couldn't stop staring at the remains of the hill. This technique, I muttered. I didn't think it could do so much damage. Neither did I. Otherwise, I wouldn't have recommended you even attempt it, Hayato admitted. This attack is by far your trump card. It has the potential to deal tremendous damage in a single strike, but Tomaki, I forbid you to ever use it unless in desperate situations. Why? I questioned, though I had a hunch of the answer. For one thing, that damage brought to bear against a normal enemy would be more than enough to kill them. And secondly, the collateral damage it causes is catastrophic. Innocent bystanders could be caught up in the shockwave you create. And finally, your arm, Tomaki. That attack is a double-edged sword. You yourself are also exposed to the shockwave of this attack. It could easily kill you. Unless your life or the lives of others are in danger, you must never use this technique. I forbid it, Tomaki. I understand, Master. I'll never use the Jishin again. I sighed, rubbing my injured arm. Good. Get some rest. Supper will be ready shortly. Hayato walked away, leaving me to sit on the floor of the dojo, looking at the destruction I'd caused, and understanding just what kind of power I was capable of. It terrified me. The warehouse was south of Bay, and when I felt the energy of Vokon within it, I felt my blood boil. I clenched my fist and marched towards the warehouse door, kicking it open with full force. There were 3 energy levels inside, and when I marched in, I saw who they were. 2 of the aliens from before that served under Vokon, the girl and the short, ugly one. And in the back, resting on an old, dirty recliner, was Vokon. He smirked when he saw me, and that ugly smile only made me even angrier. You come back. You got rather worked up over that girl. Laugh while you can, I hissed, running towards him. Nix, Vokon called. The girl alien leapt up and held out her hands. In the center of her palms were a pair of strange holes, which suddenly shot sticky golden fluid that fell all over me, hardening on impact. I grunted and tried to throw it off, but it stuck like spider webbing. What? I roared. Nix is a Spinavi. She's capable of creating sticky substances from her body, which her race have used since its prehistoric upbringings to snare and consume prey. See, the material has the ability to consume energy, and Nix can then absorb it and add it to her own power, Vokon explained. Said the spider to the fly, you've stepped into our trap. It was then I understood. Vokon had planned this. He wanted me angry so that I'd seek him out. This was all part of the hunt for him. And as there are to be introductions, Zakal over here is from a race called the Bushinjon. They are capable of creating 5 body replicas of themselves. Would you demonstrate, Zakal? Zakal smirked and threw off his clothing, revealing 4 large bulges on his back. With a roar of power, the 4 bulges burst from his body and began to take form as exact copies of Zakal, all laughing and smiling, revealing their razor-sharp teeth. I struggled to escape the sticky substance that Nix had trapped me in, but I was unable to move. It was hard as steel. The clones of Zakal all surrounded me, began firing rapid-fire ki blasts at me. Each hit me and stung like fire, but the pain only added to my rage. My hate. My fury, my anger was flaring into an aura, a deep power that had all but set aside. I'd felt it when Bell had been killed, felt it when Mamaragon had killed Komodo. And now, again, that incredible power was surging inside of me. The 5 Zakals all fired at once, creating a large eruption, swallowing me in smoke and fire. I grunted and leaned over, buckling under the pressure and suffocating from the smoke. Don't be afraid to get down and dirty, Zakal, Vokon called. This Saiyan isn't worth much at all. He's a housebroken pet to these humans. No bite to match his Saiyan bark. But I can't help but wonder, what good is your protective idealism if it allows those close to you to die, like that girl? Victoria's face flashed before my eyes. That lifeless, pain-filled, beautiful face. I lost control. The rage exploded with the force of a bombshell, and I roared to life like a hurricane. The golden power within exploded outwards, throwing the smoke away and dissipating it. Nix screamed in agony as her sticky material was burned to cinders, and she herself was thrown backwards by the impact. Zakal and his clones all jumped away in terror as the raw energy rushing off of me. Vokon jumped up, staring, his 2 eyes widening like dinner plates. What is this? You'll pay for what you did to Victoria! You'll pay in blood! Nix, restrain him, Vokon shouted. She nodded and fired a heavy load of her sticky steel material. Useless. I snatched the already hardening substance out of the air and glared murder at her. You want to taste my energy? Help yourself! I forced my energy through it like a siphon, feeding her my Super Saiyan energy. She screamed like a banshee. It burns! It burns! She retreated back from my energy. I streaked toward her like a missile and slammed my elbow into her chest, shattering her collarbone. I then grabbed her face with my hand and fired such an intense ki blast straight into her skull, it vaporized her face. Reject! Her head was knocked backwards and then it detached from her neck, crashing to the ground and unmoving. Vokon stared in horror. I just killed Nix with a single blast. Nix! Zakal cried. Get him! Get him, all of you! Zakal's clones moved to attack at once. I snarled and roared in their direction like a lion. The clones all froze in fear. All cowards in body and spirit. I took a step towards them and 2 literally tried to run. I shot after them and slew them with mere kicks to their sides, cutting them in half with a single strike. With screams of pain, they were knocked to the ground and shattered. The others fell one by one as I struck each in vital locations: the head, the neck, the chest. I didn't want them to die yet. At least not until I was done with Zakal. As he tried to make a run for it, I grabbed him by the throat, and with a single squeeze, I shattered his windpipe. He lay there, limp, like a scarecrow ripped off of its stake. I then threw him to the ground and stomped on his head so hard it shattered like a pumpkin. And with him dead, his clones died too. I then turned to the one I really wanted, the monster Vokan. Vokan! I shouted. The thunderous sound of my voice caused my own ki to expand, and Vokan took a shuddering step back. It's not possible. This power, a Super Saiyan. It's a legend, a stupid legend. You won't fool me with a change in hair color. I won't be deceived by what's clearly a facade. He ran at me, firing ki blasts as he did. And just as he got within 10 yards, he vanished. He wanted to attack me from behind. I could already sense his movements as he warped himself around me to attack from my rear. I spun and blocked his attack, rebounding off the ground and bouncing off the wall and then back at him. Our attack became one of rapid strikes and movement. We were flying around the warehouse, moving so fast our after images were all that could be seen. The sound of our blows echoed through the metal structure, causing loud crashes and shocks through the air. But there was a clear fact that only Vokan and I could see. Vokan was losing. His reflexes weren't even on par with me. His moves were sluggish, his strikes pitiful compared to mine. The only reason he wasn't already dead was I wanted to watch him struggle, watch him realize little by little what a grave mistake he'd made. I wanted him to feel the weight of his sins, and then I'd punish him for them. Each failed strike added to the look of anger on his face, and each successful blow of mine created a wave of fear that left an impression on his sadistic expression. I knocked aside one of his punches and kicked him hard in the chin, knocking him upwards. Tell me, am I still a facade? I sneered, soaring up after him and slamming both my fists into his head, sending him crashing to the ground. You think this is all a stupid legend? He coughed and struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his head as I landed across from him, rage fueling the fire in my heart. You attacked her. You attacked Victoria. I warned you to leave her alone. I offered you the chance to fight me fair and square. But you crossed the line. You put her in intensive care. And what the hell is she to you, Saiyan? She's just some human His insulting mouth was silenced with the force of my fist to his chest, compressing the muscles and bones until they shattered like glass. His words were like kindling to an already roaring fire. My face was twisted in a look of mad rage. I'd silence him. I'd end his whole wretched existence. And I knew the most effective way to do it. Vokan fell back, clutching his crushed chest, breathing heavily, blood spraying from his mouth and nose. He struggled to his feet and charged one more time at me. It would be his last. I would use it. The Jishin. I clenched my fist tightly and began releasing a steady and intense amount of ki. But rather than fire it, I suppressed it, keeping it tightly bound to my fist. The ki vibrated. It was bouncing wildly around my hand, building kinetic energy. This was the first step to the technique. Ki energy is constantly moving. So what happens when you tighten it and compress it into a fixed spot around the fist? I forced more ki around it until a pure white sphere could be seen around my hand. The sphere was pure, concentrated energy, and it was reverberating at a dangerous level. But I didn't care. His face, his disgusting, ugly face, his malicious and monstrous voice, it would all vanish in one blow. Victoria is everything to me, I hissed at him, the ki reaching its breaking point. I couldn't contain it much longer. You'll never hurt her, or anyone again! I am Vokan. I kill who I please. Now die, you Saiyan brat! He was in range. I leapt into the air and slammed my ki-infused fist into his chest. Jishin! The town outside of Bay Borough, where the warehouse was located, suddenly trembled as an earthquake of intense power shook the ground. Buildings collapsed, cars were shaken and knocked over. The air itself trembled with power. All energy and power and electricity went off intermittently for miles. The warehouse itself exploded and crumbled to pieces like falling stones, and the air seemed to shatter and shake.
It was as if someone had detonated a bomb or launched a handheld earthquake into the air. There was a sound of a high-pitched scream for the briefest of moments, and the roar of what sounded like a thunderbolt. Around the warehouse, the ground was split into small fissures, and the structure itself was destroyed. Trees fell to the ground, uprooted and decimated. And then, all was quiet. The terror gone, the catastrophe over. The 10-second earthquake had come to an end, and deep within the wreck of an old and abandoned warehouse, a Saiyan boy roared in pain, and also in remorse. Chapter 32. Daikon's head shot up in surprise as the scouter screamed into the air. An energy level had spiked on his view screen far to the north of his location. He spun around, trying to hone in on the signal, his heartbeat rising a little as he looked at the numbers. 800,000, 900,000. It's still rising, Daikon cried, his hands clenched in a fist. What on earth is causing the surge? It can't be Vokan. His power level can't be higher than 500,000, and that's being generous. Is it the galactic poachers? No, the patrollers maybe. Not likely. Daikon suddenly grinned in excitement at the prospect of the other option. Could it be Tomaki? That other Saiyan? No, impossible. Even if he was hiding his power level before, it couldn't be more than, 20,000? He was a weakling, pathetic and worthless. How could his strength have grown 50 times over? Well, color me intrigued. He climbed to his feet and turned in the direction of the spike as it dropped once more. Gone. There's no question it was real. The scouter wasn't faulting, was it? I have to see this. What power is waiting in Shan City? Finally, time for a real challenge. Daikon adjusted his scouter to lock onto the signature it had found so he could follow it. No matter how small it had dropped, the scouter would remember the energy. He then levitated off the ground and began flying towards the source, a smile growing on his face. If the scouter was right, and I just felt a power level of 1 million or more, this foe might actually be the strongest opponent I've ever fought. I can hardly wait to meet them. He burst into laughter as he picked up speed, rocketing like a missile towards the city. Little to Daikon's knowledge, another figure watched silently from the shadows. She had observed him for a while. His scouter had not found her because her energy was not one any technology would understand. She too had felt that incredible power, and like Daikon, she was intrigued, but even more intrigued to see what would happen when Daikon encountered it. The gears were turning on this conflict. The hands of fate were at work, and she knew that her time was drawing close. This, Daikon, or maybe even the power she'd sensed, could they be the keys she'd searched for this whole time? The weapon she'd sought after? Show me, Daikon. Show me the power a Saiyan possesses, she whispered. I must know. I must know what fate has in store for us. I sat in the waiting room with several others around me, all silent, and all with dark expressions, but none near as hopeless as mine. Hosha, clad in all his armor, sat on 2 chairs as his armor took up so much room. Melody sat beside me, a hand on my arm in comfort. Hayato was there too, glaring at me with a look of complete contempt and disappointment.
What were you thinking, Tomaki? Hayato asked. Using the Jishin? What if there had been innocent people nearby?
I know, I answered sharply. I screwed up. I really screwed up. Well, not entirely, Hosha explained in his electronic-sounding voice, created by the microphone on his helmet. Under galactic law, your actions fall under the qualifications of self-defense measures. Vokan posed a threat to the lives of others, and you are acting to prevent further harm. There will be no charges brought against you in this matter.
That's not the point, Hayato snarled, and you know that, don't you, Tomaki?
I didn't answer. Oh, would you lay off a little? Melody spoke up. Tomaki did what he had to do. His intentions were good, and he was trying to...
He was trying to act out of vengeance,
Hayato barked, forcing Melody silent.
There were no good intentions here. He wanted revenge, and he took it. Tomaki, I trained you better than this. A true martial artist and warrior thinks before he acts and doesn't attack to get even. He fights to protect, never to murder.
I know, Master, I whimpered, my hand shaking while my other rested in a sling. I was fortunate that the Jishin attack had only given me a slight fracture in my arm. The Super Saiyan form must have heightened my threshold for damage and lessened the damage to my body.
And worse yet, Tomaki, you used a technique that you knew was forbidden.
Then why teach him at all? Hosha pointed out. In my opinion, Tomaki did what he had to do. Volkan was a threat and had to be eliminated. Yes, he might have gone a bit overboard with a dangerous move, but he is gone now. I would have done the same. That's not the issue, I argued. It's the fact that I let my emotion rule me, that I gave in to it, the rage inside me. I'm no different than Daikon.
That is not true, Hosha snapped. Daikon is a murdering psychopath who kills and destroys for pleasure. Tomaki, you're not him in the slightest.
He's right, Tomaki, Melody encouraged. But there's one thing I don't understand, Hosha interrupted. That huge spike in power I picked up, how did that happen? Was it the technique? I turned to glance at Hayato, who shook his head slowly. We'd both decided to not share the truth about my Super Saiyan abilities to the others. There was no way of knowing how Hosha would react if he knew the truth. Best for now to keep that a secret. Yeah, it was just the Jishin. Excuse me. The conversation was interrupted as a noise came into the room, followed by Mr. Rhodes. Victoria would like to see a Tomaki? The doctor said calmly, but eyes shrunk back a little. A small shove from Melody got me to my feet. I glanced around at the others and took in their expressions. Be gentle and be compassionate, Hosha advised. But to be honest, if you care about this girl, don't insult her by lying to her about what you did and why. Gee, you're tactful, Melody snapped. He's right, Melody. Victoria deserves the truth. No matter what. With that hanging in the air, I made my way to the nurses, and she led me to Victoria. When I saw her, I felt a lump form in my throat. Bandages wrapped around her eyes, making her completely unable to see. Her left arm was tied in a sling, and she had a few stitches on her neck and shoulder. Though she didn't look as bad as before, the sight of her pained me deep within my soul. As the door closed behind me, she perked up and turned slightly towards the noise. Tomaki? She asked. Hey, Vicky, I muttered. She beamed at the sound of my voice. I cringed, not being able to see her eyes shine like they always did when she smiles. Well, hey, yourself. Tomaki, thank you so much. Dad told me you flew me straight to the hospital after what happened at the dance. I guess I'm glad I brought you as my date. I didn't smile back, but sat in the chair beside her bed and leaned forward, my hands clasped together, squeezing my own knuckles nervously. Don't thank me, Victoria. It's my fault. Oh, that's not true at all, Victoria argued. Volkan wouldn't have attacked if I hadn't been there. If I'd held back, if I'd reserved or restrained my power, then you wouldn't. Tomaki, it's not your fault, Victoria snapped, leaning towards me and reaching out across the bed, searching for my hand. I held it out and placed it on hers softly. She squeezed it and smiled. Tomaki, you saved me and so many other lives last night. You risked your life for us all at that dance. I was the stupid one to come back into the room. I was worried and wanted to make sure you were okay. That was my mistake, not yours. And you beat Volkan and saved my life. You're a hero. I'm not a hero, I grimaced. She started to argue but then stopped when she felt my hand trembling. I couldn't stop it. Tears were filling my eyes and blurring my villain. I'm a killer. Tomaki, what's wrong? Volkan won't be hurting anyone ever again. I hunted him down and I found where he was hiding. Victoria tensed up, and though I couldn't see her eyes, I could feel the intensity in her blank gaze. Tomaki, what happened? She asked, but her tone of voice showed she knew the answer. He mocked you. He called you foolish and stupid. I lost control. I gave in to my anger and I killed him. I used a technique and killed him. He and his buddies are buried under the rubble of a ruined warehouse. Victoria leaned back in her bed and her breath was shaky as she took in my words. I used Super Saiyan. I gave in to my anger. I let go and I just... The tears flowed freely now as I pulled my hand away from her. I was worried she'd slap it away first. I couldn't even look at her. Her silence hurt me worse than any blow Vokon gave me. I killed them. I see, Victoria whispered. He was going to kill you. He tried to murder everyone at the dance. But you're not him, Tomaki. You're not a killer like him. Why would you do that? I did it. I did it because of me? Victoria asked, choking on her words. Was I the reason you killed them? I didn't answer her right away. I just bit my lip and stood up, walking away from the bed. He hurt you. Tomaki, you know better. You're a hero, a defender, not an avenger. I'm a Saiyan! I roared back, silencing her. It's in our blood. Murder, destruction, vengeance, it's our nature. It's like this instinct that I can't rid myself of. Maybe Daikon was right. I was just fooling myself all this time that I could be some kind of hero or something. But last night, when I confronted Vokon, I felt it. That rage. I felt it the night Mom was killed. I felt it when Warren died for me. That this anger, it's this urge to just fight and kill, to fight with everything I have and destroy it. How can I fight what I am? What if being a killer really is who I am? Maybe I'm just a monster. I let that word hang and I turned away from Victoria as the tears now rolled off my cheeks and hit the floor. I leaned into the wall and bit back the sobs I wanted to give. After a long moment, I finally glanced back at her. She was leaning forward on the bed, her face hidden behind her beautiful silvery red hair. You deserve better than me, Victoria. I'm a monster. A killer. And you're perfect. I walked towards the door and placed my hand firmly on the knob. I love you, Victoria. I really do. But we can't. I can't. Not after this. I opened the door. You idiot! She screamed. I spun around to face her and I could see tears rolling out from under her bandages. You're such an idiot, Tomaki! Victoria? I turned and watched her rip away her bed sheets and turn her body as if to get out of bed. I gasped and ran to her. She threw her arms out. Don't get up! You need to stay in... I didn't finish. As soon as I reached her, she threw her arms around my neck and sobbed into my shoulder. I could only stand there, dazed and amazed, as she cried, hot tears into my shirt. Don't leave me, she whispered. Tomaki, don't ever talk like that again, please. But what I did, you made a mistake. Yes, you lost control. And yes, I'm disappointed in you. But don't you ever compare yourself to Daikon. Don't you ever call yourself a monster or a murderer to me. I know who and what you are. You're a hero. You saved my life. You protected me when I was the dumb one to run into the line of fire. I wrapped my arm around her as she wept, and I cried too, bitterly and without restraint. I love you too, Tomaki. Why, though? I asked. After what I did, I thought you'd hate me. Because that's what you do when you love somebody, Tomaki. You forgive them. One second, guys. Take a moment to take all that in while I adjust this real quick, because I need to find the next chapter. Well, that is not good. Well, guys, I have some bad news. Turns out that chapter 33, which would be the next chapter, is actually missing. Turns out that it was not edited properly. So I'm going to have to make those edits, and we'll have to convene next time. So we will have to call there for tonight. I thought that apparently what I accidentally did was I saved chapter 34, and accidentally deleted chapter 33. That was my fault. I remember how it goes though, so I can easily rewrite it. Sorry about that, guys. So we will have to call it there for tonight, unfortunately. I'll check one more spot, see if it's there. No, it is not there. Okay. Well, that stinks. That does stink. Is this it? No. No, that's not it. Okay. Then I'll just have to rewrite it. Simple as that. All right, guys. Well, it'll take some time to write, but I'll have it ready by next week. Okay, well, sorry, guys. I know that that's a little bit disappointing. I'll go ahead and change the title of the stream since we couldn't get to all of it. I hate to only read 3 chapters with you guys, but they were long chapters, to be fair. All right, well, you did good tonight, guys. Thank you so much for obeying the rules and following them. Thank you to Hannah and Aaron for sticking around to keep an eye on things. Hope you guys enjoyed what happened. In a sense, we've actually finished the Galactic Poachers arc. We're moving on to the Daikon arc, because we're finally going to get to see Tomaki take on Daikon in a few chapters. But yeah, before I go, are there any questions or anything you'd like to know more about before I go? All right. Well, in that case, we'll go ahead and end it there. Thank you guys so much. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Is it Daikon or Daikon? Daikon. Their first spelling is right. All right. Take care, guys. See you in my next one.